Welcome back. We're doing another exploration into one of the world's most interesting iGaming markets to pull out the insights you need to know.
And today, we are heading to the Mediterranean.
That's right. We're focusing on a small but, let's say financially complex island, Cyprus.
Specifically, its iGaming market.
And just so you know where we're coming from, we are the Gambling Databases research team. We're a group that's really dedicated to delivering these in-depth analyses.
Right, our whole goal is to look at the global iGaming landscape, and in each report, we dive into, the key stuff.
Key stuff like local regulations, taxation, player experience, all of it.
We want to give you a really clear, data-driven picture of how the industry actually works in each market and, what makes it tick.
And Cyprus is a fascinating one to start with.
It absolutely is. I mean, on the surface, you've got a population of about 1.2 million, a solid GDP of around 24.5 billion, and it's fully regulated.
All good things.
All very good things. In fact, when we ran the numbers, Cyprus scored a 7.5 out of 10 for overall market attractiveness. That should scream opportunity.
It should, but our analysis doesn't call it an opportunity. It calls it a gold-plated trap.
And that's the core tension, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what we're here to unpack. Why does a market that looks so good on paper hide such a big risk?
Oh, okay. So let's start with that attractive veneer, the gold-plated part. What makes Cyprus look so good at first glance?
Well, it really starts with just absolute regulatory clarity. Everything is centralized, run by one body, the Cyprus Gaming and Casino Supervision Commission, the CGCSC.
So no confusion about who's in charge.
None. And since 2021, they've had this unified licensing system that covers online casinos, sports betting, lotteries, everything under one roof. For an operator, that kind of transparency is, well, it's invaluable.
You know exactly what you're getting into, and the rules themselves seem to really benefit the player. The report mentions the player tax situation.
Oh, that's a massive deal. It's huge for consumer confidence. In Cyprus, players are generally not taxed on winnings from licensed operators.
So what you win is what you keep.
Exactly. Think about the psychology of that. It just incentivizes people to play with the licensed regulated sites, which is what the regulator wants. It creates a very healthy ecosystem.
So let's put some hard numbers to this. How big are we talking, really?
Well, relative to its population, it's quite strong. We're projecting a gross gaming revenue about 350 million for 2025.
And it's growing.
It's growing fast.
Yeah.
The forecast shows a compound annual growth rate of 8.5% all the way through 2030. That's some serious sustained growth.
Wow. And you mentioned that players there have money to spend. That shows up in the ARPU, right? The average revenue per user.
It does. The ARPU is high. It's around 420 annually.
Which, to put that in perspective, is on par with some much larger European markets.
Precisely. It signals a very engaged, high-value player base. But, and here's the first little red flag, all that revenue is being split among a tiny number of operators.
How tight?
Just 8 online licenses and 4 land-based. That's it. So the market is already very concentrated.
Okay, that makes sense. So a valuable, stable, growing market, but it's already dominated. Let's get into the financial plumbing then. The trap. What are the costs that make this so challenging?
It begins with just getting your foot in the door. The licensing process is, let's say, demanding. Application fees can run anywhere from 30,000 euros up to $150,000.
And it's not a quick process.
Not at all. You're looking at 3 to 6 months minimum. And during that time, they are doing deep background checks on all your directors, and you have to prove you have a minimum capital deposit. Only serious players need apply.
And once you're in, the bills really start coming. The tax structure looks pretty heavy.
It is. It's a tiered GGR tax. So for casino games, you're taxed at 20% of gross gaming revenue.
Which is the high margin product.
Right. And then for sports betting and lotteries, it's a bit lower at 15%. But then you have to add the 12.5% corporate tax on top of all of that.
So before you've paid a single salary, a huge chunk of your revenue is already gone.
A very substantial slice, yeah. And then comes compliance.
Which is EU level. So we're talking AML, KYC, GDPR, all the expensive acronyms.
All of them.
Yeah.
And the CGCSC is not messing around. They require quarterly financial reports, they do random audits, and the penalties for getting it wrong are severe. Fines, even losing your license.
You can't cut corners there. Even advertising seems tough.
It is. You can advertise, but the rules are incredibly strict. No misleading claims, no targeting minors, no aggressive tactics. It forces you to have a very high-cost, high-integrity marketing strategy.
Okay, so this is all adding up, but we still haven't gotten to the main event. The single biggest reason our analysis calls this a trap.
Right. This is the absolute linchpin of the whole financial challenge.
The mandatory physical presence.
That's it. Operators are legally required to establish a registered local entity, a local branch office, and this is the real killer, maintain their compliance and responsible gambling teams physically located in Cyprus.
Wait. So you have to hire local staff, pay for an office, set up a whole mini
A
headquarters,
full operational headquarters.
all to serve a potential customer base of 1.2 million people.
That is the paradox in a nutshell. It's an immense, non-negotiable fixed cost that's completely out of scale with the total addressable market. I mean, our data suggests the active player base will only be around 370,000 people by 2030.
The math on that just doesn't work for most companies. You're forcing a huge, heavy operational model onto a market that should support a lean, remote one.
Exactly right. It completely changes the economics. We estimate the initial capex just to get licensed and set up is over 600,000 euros.
600,000 euros before you've taken a single bet.
And that's just the start. The ongoing costs are where it really hurts.
What are we talking monthly?
Because of the mandated local staff and office space, we estimate the monthly operating cost to be over 100,000 euro
100 grand a month.
or more. And you have to pay that bill every month, whether you're growing fast or slow.
Suddenly that 420 ARPU doesn't seem so high anymore.
Not when you have a 1.2 million euro annual overhead before you even start marketing. It just warps the entire model.
So what's the break-even time on an investment like that?
When you combine the overhead with the effective tax rate of around 32.5%, you're looking at a long time. Our analysis suggests 24 to 36 months, 2 to 3 years just to get your money back.
So the bottom line is pretty clear.
Yeah. This market is really only viable for, the huge tier 1 international groups that can absorb those costs, or maybe a company that already has a B2B hub in Cyprus. For anyone else, it's a non-starter.
A financial graveyard, as the report puts it. But all of that intense pressure on the operator must create an amazing experience for the player, right? That has to be the upside.
It is, and it's a huge upside. It's the whole reason the player access score was an incredible 9.8 out of 10. All that required investment gets funneled directly into the consumer experience.
So let's talk about that. The digital infrastructure must be top-notch.
World class. You've got 87% internet penetration, 95% mobile coverage, and the average broadband speed is around 150 Mbps. Super fast, super reliable.
And they're all in on mobile?
Absolutely. Smartphone adoption is over 85%. And the 5G rollout is happening fast, full coverage expected by 2026. That's a game changer for things like live betting.
So the technology is frictionless. What about payments? How are people moving money?
They're very comfortable with digital payments. Credit and debit cards are still number one at 58%. But e-wallets like PayPal, Skrill, the Teller, they have a strong 10% share.
So easy to deposit, easy to withdraw.
And fast, which we know players value highly. We're even seeing cryptocurrency usage at around 2%.
Okay, and what are they playing?
Sports betting is king. About 22% of adults participate. Online casinos right behind it at 18%. And they really favor platforms that are localized in both Greek and English.
And all of this is wrapped in that regulatory safety net we talked about.
Exactly. All those mandatory responsible gaming tools,
Yeah.
self-exclusion, deposit limits, support services, they cost the operator a lot, but they create a very safe and trustworthy environment for the user, which explains that near-perfect score.
So if we tie this all together, where do we land?
You land at a place that offers one of the clearest legal frameworks in the EU. It's stable, it's predictable. But that fixed cost of entry, driven by the physical presence rule, is just fundamentally out of whack with the size of the market.
So for anyone listening and looking at new markets, the takeaway here is that the challenge in Cyprus isn't legality or tech. Those are solved problems.
Completely solved.
The challenge is purely financial. Can you afford to absorb a six-figure monthly overhead for 2 to 3 years while you fight for market share against 8 massive entrenched competitors?
That's the billion-dollar question, or, well, the multi-million euro question anyway. It's a long, expensive game.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you to consider. The data shows that just 8 licensed operators hold most of the market share.
That's right, it's a very small club.
So does this incredibly strict physical presence rule, which is designed to ensure compliance and protect players, does it also, maybe unintentionally, act as a financial wall? A barrier that protects the existing oligopoly from smaller, more agile competitors?
It's a fascinating question. The regulatory rigor by default, becomes a kind of economic protectionism. It's an outcome, whether it was intended or not, that really defines the entire market.
Something to think about. For the full text of this and all our other country reports, you can visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.